Hey up, this is Dave of PPL. This video was originally supposed to be about an electronics project, but when I was trying to record the video of the electronics project, it just ended up running too long. So I'm instead doing a video about something that I discovered or something that I got sidetracked on in trying to achieve something in the electronics. I will do another video about that, but I will get this step out of the way and then come back to that in a later video. Because for this step, for this video, we are going to be making rubber stamps, and the only physical things you need are the 3D printer and some of this stuff, which is a 2-part silicone rubber. I don't think there's any particular brand that you need to get. I just got this stuff because it was the most weight for the lowest price, and it's just stuff you mush it together for a few seconds until it's all the same colour. We'll go through it at the end, but basically it sets in 5 minutes, and it's a sort of squidgy rubber which is left in whatever shape you want to put it in. Also, so that's what you need for the hardware or whatever physical real stuff. In terms of software, we're going to be using 3 different software programs, which are all free and open source, and we'll just get into it. The first thing we're going to use is something called GIMP, which is the GNU image manipulation program, and that is just it's basically just Photoshop. It's any old photo manipulation program, but it's free and open source, and it's really powerful. Sometimes it's a bit confusing if you've learnt in something else, but I don't know if I'm getting better at it, or it just tends to get a bit easier to use over the years. Anyway, first thing we want to do is get an image that we're going to turn into a rubber stamp. You can just get any SVG, black and white or whatever, and skip this step, but I want to go right from having an original image. So this is a photo that I took of my dog, and the first thing that we have to do is choose which part of the image we want to use. So obviously we want to get a picture of the dog, so we will just zoom in a bit, get the dog on the screen, and then we want to use the free select tool with the lasso icon, and then we basically want to just draw around the shape that we're going to be wanting to make into a stamp. This doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, and I might just skip this bit, speed it up. Down here, when we get to the feet, the way the back feet are hidden, the front feet are in shot. So what I'm going to do is I will just put a circle around the ground, and then we'll have this as the base of the image that we're going to use. And yeah, let's go there, and then back leg. Back, like I say, it doesn't have to be pixel perfect. The dog's called Pixel, so pixel perfect, that is a joke only I will get. Anyway, we'll carry on, and then yeah, you can actually make corrections to this afterwards if you mess up. Just carry on going, and then what we have to do is something, is that the shape of your head pixel, and then just click on the last bit to end it. Right now there's still a few parts that we have to correct or cut out. I'm not sure if there is a button to actually do this bit that I'm going to do automatically, but I've found that if you click on another tool, then click back, then what you can do here under free select is you can add, subtract, intersect, do anything you basically want to add or remove from this selection. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract from the current selection, and then I will zoom in a little bit, and if we just accidentally right clicking again, I'm doing this on a trackpad, really need a mouse. I don't have one. This is really ghetto way of doing things here, but if I could do this on a trackpad, anyone can do it on anything. So again, what we're going to do to remove a bit more, back to lasso tool, cut a little bit more out, just the background, because we don't want this. Again, accidentally right clicking. There we go. And then, yeah, see, just deselect, reselect, and then we can cut this bit out. Right, I think it's alright, maybe trim this little bit near the ears, a little bit closer in, because it looks slightly wrong, so there you go. And there we go, I think that's pretty much a good enough outline. So then what we're going to do once we've done that is, oh, actually, there's a bit that I need to add there. So again, click off the tool, click back on the tool, and we'll get this bit of the heading. There we go, that should do. Right. And then what we're going to want to do now is edit, because that is now a selection, that is the shape of the dog. So we want to copy, and then we want to paste as, and then go to new image. And there you go, that will give us the cutout. Everything that was outside of the selection has now been deleted, and that's considered a transparency layer. And wait a minute. Oh wait, so now I made a mistake there. What we want to do now, before we copy this, is we want to go to edit, and then go down to stroke selection, and then we want to basically do that, draw, and that will draw a black line all the way around the dog. And then what we want to do, edit, copy, edit, paste as new image, and then that will create a new image for us that has removed the background, and we have a dog and we have an outline around it. Now this is the time, if there's anything that you really want to show up as an outline on your image, this is the time to just break out the paintbrush tool. And what we will do is we'll zoom in a bit, and we'll just draw around these little feet. I think, does that need to be a bit smaller? Let's see how this works. Maybe we need, actually it does need to be a bit bigger. So then just draw lines. So this is stuff really, when you're thinking about it as a stamp, because we're actually going to lose all of the colour in this, it is going to turn out black and white. So the stuff that you really want to stand out, like stuff like this that doesn't contrast against the background too well, you're really going to want to just break out the paintbrush tool and touch it up a bit to make sure that there is a visible outline. Maybe undo that bit. So there we go, that is all we really need to do to this image for this bit. So it's File, Export As, and then you will go to wherever you're wanting to do your project. This It is worth doing a new folder for this one because in one of the tools that we use in OpenSCAD, it needs to be able to find images relative to the save file that you're using. I'll explain more about that later, but it's best to put this in a folder that is specifically designed to manage the projects that you're working on. So we'll call this pixel. Just export with the default settings, and that is the first part done. Right. Okay, so this is the second program we have to use. Again, 3 in open source. This one is called Inkscape, and this is for creating vector images, which are images that don't consist of a pixel matrix. So basically, not any kind of photo or anything, but they're often used for logos and things on websites. So Inkscape is for creating these vector images, but it has some cool features which we are going to use in order to make our stamp. So what we now need to do is import the PNG that we have just created using GIMP. So to do that, this is also probably the quickest step on in the case of making one of these stamps. So what we want to do is go to File, Import, find our image, so pixel.png, just go with the default settings, and then we want to scale this up slightly, so we hold Control and then just drag it across and then get it to fit roughly in this space. And then the next step we've got to do is go to Path and Trace Bitmap, and then simply we have to click Update. It seems like it might be a bit dark, so I think does that need to go up? Nope, up makes it go darker, so we'll go down to 4, Update, and then yeah, let's go with that. I think we might want to turn speckles off. I'm not sure if it makes a difference, but I feel like we actually want as few objects in this image as possible, just for the sake of printing it out. So once we've done that, we click Apply, and then what we get is the SVG, the vector image we've just created, and that is now sat on top of the original image. So we will select that original image, delete it, go to File, and then see I've been messing about with this because I encountered a bug that you get if you, instead of using brightness cutoff, use auto trace. Auto trace, it makes it more polygonal and stylized. It's worth playing with just because it makes some cool images, but it doesn't seem to get on with OpenSCAD, which is the next program in the chain. So we're just using brightness cutoff for this. Then we go to File, you can click Save. I'll just save as, just so we get to this bit, and then it will be pixel.png.svg. We'll replace it. You won't be doing that, you'll be creating a new image, but I just wanted to go through all the steps so you don't find yourself missing something that I've done. So now, the third program that we're using is called OpenSCAD, and this is an image for creating 3D models. You can see here that I've already attempted to load the image up, and what is going on in this program is we'll work outwards from it. So what we do is we import an SVG, this is the image we've just created, and then we are changing the scale of that. We'll see the effect that has in a second. In fact, we'll go through that now because that does need to be scaled. So basically, there will be a certain scale that the SVG expects to be when you when it is imported in OpenSCAD. I don't fully understand it, but what's important is we can use this scale function. So this image looks like it's slightly too big, so what we'll do is we'll just change the scale from 0.18 to 0.17, and then we click on preview, and there you see it's just fitting in there slightly better. This linear extrude, what this means is because an SVG is a 2D file, it doesn't actually have the third dimension, the height, it just comes in as X and Y. So what we're doing with linear extrude is we are taking it and we are making it 2 millimeters taller, and so we are basically turning a 2D object into a 3D object. Translate is, that's how it moves about on these grids. So the first number in these square brackets is that direction, second number is Y, and then third number is Z up here. So that looks like we maybe could move it to the right one, so we'll add a 1 to that. So let's move that slightly up, and then let's move the whole thing slightly further up there. Oh, maybe, actually maybe we should scale the image up a little bit more, and then let's see how that works. So it's fine. I'll just check, am I recording? I am recording. So yeah, this always renders terribly in the preview stage. I'll just talk you through the rest of this before I render it, because rendering a complex object like this is pretty intensive and it might mess up the recording. So I will explain it all before we get to that. So basically this is a template that I've made. I'll paste it in the description of the video. You copy and paste it. Before you try to preview anything though, what you're going to want to do is save it in the same folder as the image that you are wanting to create a stamp out of, so the same folder as the SVG that you've just created, and then basically just replace this with the name of your image file and then preview, and then you will just have to tweak these numbers to just be how you want them. Also, this here is the size of this block that you're making in millimeters. So this is going to be a 40 millimeter, so 40 millimeter wide, 60 millimeters high. Well, I guess that's really 60 millimeters long, because it's only 3 millimeters high. And that's really all there is to it. I guess I could go through it a bit more and drill down into it, but really you just need to copy and paste this, change this to the size of the stamp you want, tweak these numbers until it is aligned in the right size, and change this to your file name. Once that's done, you obviously click the preview button to make sure it's okay, looks alright there, and then after that you're going to want to click this render button, and this takes several minutes on my computer, so I'll just quickly talk you through what you do. Is you click the render button. Once it's rendered, then you click export as STL, and then you save it as an STL file. Just save that in the same folder as you saved everything else, and then we can move on to the next step, which is actually beginning to print out this plastic die that we will be using to make the rubber stamp. So I will click this and see if it crashes my computer. Right, before we move on to the next program, which is, I know I said there was only going to be 3 programs that we were using. I assume if you're used to using 3D printing, you would have already used the 4th program, and there's plenty of other guides on how to use the other program, even though I'm going to go through it anyway to give some tips. But before that, there's one more thing we have to do in OpenSCAD, and that is the actual handle of the stamp. So I've written another little script. This is something that I will also paste in the description, and you can just copy paste this into your version of OpenSCAD, and then what we want to do up here is just change the length and the width to what we had before. Just quickly try and build that, and then see we've got this little waffle pattern underneath here which will help grip onto the silicone rubber at the end. So we just want to render this. is this going to take? Hurry up, please. What's it look like underneath? Oh, it's disappeared. There we go. So yeah, that's the pattern you're going to want underneath, and then yeah, just save this as an STL as well. We'll call it 40 by 60 stamp handle, and save that as an STL. And then we should move on to the next program. Okay, so this is the last program we're going to have to use, which is Slicer, or Slick 3R, as some people say it. And the reason I'm using this, if you know much, if you slice models and use them before, is basically other programs, like I prefer to use Prusa Slicer these days, but Prusa Slicer seems to get some manifold errors when using these stamp dies, and then they don't render correctly. But Slicer, or Slick 3R, doesn't seem to have those issues, or if it does, it covers them up pretty well, and you still get the model that you're expecting out the other side. So what we're going to do is add something. I'll let you guys work out how to print a stamp handle, but I will just give some tips to increase the details on the actual die itself. Oh, when it starts responding. Yeah, so on the die itself, it is quite a complex object, and there is a tendency for a lot of the detail to get lost and you to get accidental bridging, just because the nozzle is trying to retract, move somewhere else, and then print again. So a way I've worked out to get rid of that bridging is to, where do we, oh, how do we do it in this? I remember how to do it in Prusa Slicer. So we want to rotate around the, not the Z-axis, I want to rotate around, I think it's the Y-axis, or the X-axis first, so change that to 45 degrees, and then that should stand it like that. And then again, you want to select the object. Why are you not staying selected? What is going on here? Select object, yeah, rotate, and then was it just the Y-axis that we rotated around? Or was it the X-axis? Let's try this. Okay, no, undo that. Yeah, we need to rotate it around the Y-axis. So rotate Y-axis 45 degrees. So we want it to be effectively stood on its corner. And the reason you want it like that is because you want it stood up very steep, but you also want as much contact with the bed as possible to keep it stable as possible. And with it being stood up steep, you get less pickups of the nozzle, so it will cut across that way, which means that for these details, instead of picking up and going down again, it will just come along here, move in, go to this bit, move out, go to the end, move in, and you won't get as many retractions needed, which means you'll get less stringing and less spotting, and your stamp will come out better quality. So once you've done that, do I have it configured correctly to do the support material? Doesn't seem to be any support material there. Okay, I've just had to do some experimenting with getting the right overhang. So basically, when you are doing this, by default, it will try to print with no support material, and that's bad, because it's not going to print, because it's all going to be trying to balance on like a single point down there that's less than a millimeter wide. So you want a really low overhang threshold, and you want a really low overhang threshold, and you want to support on build plate only. and that will stop you getting bits printed within the actual stamp die itself. And that's really all you need for now. I I won't show you how to actually print it, because I assume uh, if you have a 3D printer, you have already exported STL files to the printer before. You'll have your own way of doing it. I personally use Octoprint, but it seems that most people I've seen use SD cards or USB sticks. But however you do it, you're going to want to export it as a G-code, somehow get it onto your printer, and then print this bit out, and then I will join you after I have printed my file out for the final part of actually making the stamp. Okay, there's the printout. I have a feeling that focus. I have a feeling maybe that's got too many details on it, but there's only one way to find out. So we'll get this ready, turn it into a stamp. Okay, so obviously peel the support material off. There's a little bit of stuff in there. It's melted there a bit, but it doesn't really matter too much because, well, this bit's going to practically be discarded soon. And then also we've got the handle that we printed out. And now is the fun bit. We basically got to get the ball of each part of this silicone gel and a Silhand. But there's other brands. This stuff's called Siligum, but it costs like 10 times as much as this by weight, because that's from Hobbycraft. That isn't. So keep all about the same size. Get a little bit more of the white stuff on that one. I imagine these don't have to be perfectly measured out. Yeah, a little bit more white. And once you've measured them out, you just cut this away, and then just mush these together. So keep folding it in on itself. Whenever you see a bit that's too white or too blue, just fold it into the middle. And eventually you get a nice uniform light blue colour. And that's about right. So you have to be fairly quick with this because it sets in 5 minutes. So now what we have to do is massage it nice and firmly into the stamp. Keep folding it back into the middle. Just you don't really want it going over the edges. It doesn't matter if it does go over the edge, but it's a more efficient use of the stuff to keep it on top. In fact, that might be slightly too little, so quickly just get a little bit more before it sets. Again, a little bit low and white there. So mush it together, because what we want is quite a bit extra on the top, because we're going to mush it into those squares, so we really want it to wrap around those when we start to force it down. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you have a bit too much, because you can just squeeze it off and then simply squash it down in there. Yeah, you'll have a bit extra. So it's a good idea actually to do several of these at once, because then the stuff you wipe off there can go into the next stamp. But I don't really have a suitable handle prepared, but I can still just stick it in there anyway, and I've got a slightly less useful stamp. For now though, That's that bit done. So just gotta wait 5 minutes. I prefer to wait 10, just to make sure it's all done. And then we're gonna have to price that off, which I don't know with this die how easy that's gonna be. I imagine probably not too easy. Right, so it's been about 5-10 minutes. It's about a demo paper with the other stamps, and we're gonna see if we can get this off. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to do, and I have a feeling that might be the case with this one, just because of the sheer level of detail, but we'll try it anyway, see if it fails. Oh, that seems like it might have worked, although a lot of details come out, but how much of it will actually come out when we use it as a stamp. So there's only obviously one way to check. We get our ink pad, prepare that, move you out of the way. Will this work? Oh, I think I bounced as I put that down. It's failure to be able to use a printer. Oh, failure to be able to use a stamp, sorry. Oh, I won't whack it down so hard. So there we go. And you know how to put the stamp down without it bouncing. Don't get too enthusiastic. Re-recording this bit because I've got a feeling it didn't work last time. There we go. So that is the result of the stamp that we got out, which certainly looks slightly better than this. This looks like a bit of a mess. This is actually recognisable as a photo of a dog. Also looks a bit better than this. A few other examples of the stamps I've been getting carried away with. This is old Labour Party logo. This is what happens if you don't put it on a slant. You get the layer lines in it, which if you want that as an effect, yeah, just print it flat. Don't put it at an angle. Yorkshire Rose there. That's on focus. One that's more about the black lines than actually trying to be a photo like this. My other dog, and this is a stamp that I made for a friend for their Facebook store. So there you go. It's totally plausible to make rubber stamps using 3D printing.